Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly coffee. I'm so happy and so excited for the person that I have here with me today is Dan Hill. He's the founder of Sensory Logic and he's the author of many books. Some of them are Emotionomics, sorry with my English, sometimes I get stuck, about face, famous faces decoded, and he's amazing. He's doing something that I'm passionate about. So thank you, Dan. Thank you for being here with me. How are you?
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much. How are you? How is everything?
Oh, it's good. I'm in sunny California, so I have no complaints.
Lucky you. Lucky you. We're
Yes,
here
I am
with,
pretty lucky often in life.
that's good. And can you tell us a little about your background? So then the people know about what you do and how it is.
Yeah, so I'm what's called a facial coder, which means that I read people's emotions through their facial expressions. And I'm often asked how it is that I found myself in this profession because, first of all, I have a PhD in English, so I specialized in verbal communication, and now I focus on nonverbal communication. Secondly, I'm Norwegian American by background, and Scandinavians are not exactly famous for being outgoing and emotional. So it is something of a cosmic joke that I would be an emotions expert. But the reason for this, probably, at least in part and biographically, is that my family moved to Italy when I was a 6-year-old boy. My father worked for the 3M company. He was assigned to a film plant on the Italian Riviera, another piece of bad luck,
Uh-huh.
just like being in sunny California. And I didn't know the language at first. I had to read nonverbals. And of course, Italians have a
Oh,
lot of nonverbal signals. They're
yeah.
famous for it. Yeah, so I started out by doing that. But as we headed home to America, we stopped in Holland at the Rijksmuseum. And as a 7-year-old boy, I fell in love with Rembrandt. And of course, Rembrandt is famous for his ability to depict people's facial expressions and how they're feeling. So, on a personal level, that's really where the story starts. On a professional level, what happened was that in 1998, someone I knew at IBM sent me an article about the breakthroughs in brain science and how much we are sensory emotional decision makers. And I was so fascinated by the article that my hands were literally trembling when I finished reading it. I said to myself, this is the coolest thing. It makes so much sense. And frankly, the business world is so blind, ignorantly blind about the reality that emotions matter to us, that I decided basically on the spot to quit the job I was at and start my
Wow.
own company and to explore emotions. And then the question got to be, well, how are you going to explore emotions? And eventually I discovered facial coding, which we can talk about further.
Yeah, wow. What story. So it goes for a long road.
It has a long
And
road and an unexpected road, to say the least.
yeah, yeah, but it's something I'm fascinated about it too, because you can read a lot in people. But for the people that is not familiar with it, what is facial coding? Can you tell an explanation?
Yeah. I think the really fun thing about facial coding is that it goes all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci. If you look at his notebooks and you think about the Mona Lisa, the reason why it's such a great painting in part is because in his notebooks, he diagrammed how the facial muscles revealed our emotions. And so in the Mona Lisa, she is feeling several different emotions. It's not just the smile, the famous Mona Lisa smile. There's actually also a smirk there. She's showing some contempt. There's some anger where the eyes are narrowed and she's kind of like staring back at the painter, painting her, which is, of course, Da Vinci himself. There's a little bit of sadness. The corners of the mouth are pulled down a little bit. The chin is raised. So really the story of facial coding starts with Leonardo da Vinci being such a genius and so observant of human nature, which led him to the face. And then a man named Charles Darwin, in his study of evolution, said to himself essentially, why do we have emotions? They must have an adaptive advantage for us. And he came to
True.
realize that in your face, you best reflect and communicate your emotions. And then about a century after Darwin, the person who kind of put it all together is a man named Paul Ekman. And Paul went through with a colleague at the School of Medicine in San Francisco, and over a course of about a dozen years, roughly speaking, systematically figured out which muscle movements correspond to which emotions. So there are 7 emotions and there are 23 expressions that go to one or more of those emotions. And the emotions, just to finish answering the question, are happiness, surprise, anger, fear, sadness, disgust, and contempt.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Really, really interesting.
It is, yes, it is. Someone has once said that the 25 square inches in the middle of our face are the most valuable real estate in the world. And I think that's true, whether it's in your personal life or in your professional life.
Yeah, it's true. Because sometimes you see people and you see something in the face and you don't like it. And you don't, when you're not an expert like yourself, you don't know exactly what it is, but you can feel it in the face.
Yeah, you get a premonition. George Orwell, the
Yes.
British writer, said, "By the age of 50, a man has the face he deserves." We do
Yes.
have signature expressions. We have habits. We get muscle memory because we show a certain feeling or expression over and over, and it really does, in many ways reveal who we are. Now, I'm not trying to overstate it because obviously, you can be in the moment. There's a certain circumstance. You're
Yeah, of
interacting
course.
with people, so obviously it's more complex than that. But at the same time, there is often an essence to somebody. We talk about whether they're warm or cold, whether they're kind
True.
of, more of a sheep or a wolf. I mean, those things come out, and they come out in part through the expressions.
Yes, true. And I like also the sentence that you say that I read from you that is there are two currencies, dollars and emotions. If you want to make the first, you better take care of the second one. And I think this is so true. But can you tell us
Oh,
a
oh,
little
it
more
is. I mean,
about it?
well, you're in Holland, and I must confess, at one point I said to myself, how is it that they got all these great painters? How do they get Rembrandt and Vermeer and everybody else? And then I was like, well, actually, the Dutch had the first middle class because they were business people, and
Yeah, true.
particularly they were tradespeople. They took goods out of the Baltic region and sold it to the Mediterranean region, and that's how they originally made their fortune. And to be a good tradesperson, you have to know the party. You have to read the other party. You have to know when you have a deal, when you don't have a deal. Can you trust them? Can you maybe ask for a little bit higher price? Did you make them upset because you were too greedy? All those things you have to know. And to me, that was the amazing thing, was in business. When I jumped in this field 20 some years ago, everybody was going around and pretending we're Mr. Spock, that we supposedly make rational, objective decisions in life. To which I frankly, pardon my French, have to say BS, bullshit. I mean, it's just not true. We are Homer Simpson from the Simpsons TV show.
True.
We make decisions out of altruism and greed and laziness and things we don't want to admit to, but it's profoundly human. And so business is always about people to people. It's B2P, business to people. You sell to people, you employ people, you are a person as the founder, the leader, the salesperson. I mean, how could you not go to emotions? And everyone's
True.
literate with euros and dollars, but people are amazingly not literate about emotions. And yet it is
Yeah.
indeed, I believe, that second currency.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's the first one because it's true what you say. I don't work. I do marketing for work in communication, and I always people ask me, "What do you do, B2B or B2C?" I say, "I don't know. I don't do any of them. I do P2P because I talk to people, and if the people don't like you, they are not going to buy your product. It's,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
way
I
it
mean,
works."
yeah, we will find an excuse not to buy from you, and we'll
Yes.
wait for the next person. So I would agree with you. Actually, it's the first currency because, if you look at how the brain evolved, the origin of the brain was actually our sense of smell, to be able to detect, this odor versus that
Yeah.
odor. So when Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am," he should have said, "I have the ability to smell, and therefore I think." So that was the origin of the brain, was our sensory abilities, particularly visually, in addition to smell. But the next part of the brain that evolved was really the mammalian brain, which is our emotional brain. And that came in evolution before the rational brain. So, feeling precedes thinking. Everyone feels before they think. That's just how the
Hmm.
brain's wired. So I absolutely
True.
agree with you that, in fact, emotions are the primary currency, and we use dollars to complete the deal that was already conducted emotionally.
Yes, true. But it's true. Sometimes you ask people, "Why did you buy this?" or "What have you done this?" and they don't know. They just follow
Yeah.
their instincts. So yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
But when I saw your sentence, I was like, wow, it's really true. I never thought about it that way. But I'm going to keep it in my sentence. I have a book where I write sentences that I like. And I'm going to
Sure.
keep that one. I really like it.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just essential to one's professional life. It's crazy not to know it.
yeah, it's really important. And also in marketing and communication, we
Oh
don't talk
yeah.
about products anymore. We don't talk about products. We talk about the feeling you are going to have when you have that product.
Yeah, no, when I started my company, particularly when I didn't have, quite honestly, a long list of clients to brag about or this or that, I told them the story of why I gotten into this and why it was fascinating. What was the eureka moment? So I tried to personalize my offer based on my
Mhm.
enthusiasm and my dedication and my belief that this was scientifically and psychologically accurate as to how things would work. And I put that front and center rather than the product offer. That was the second thing I talked about.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's the way it works. And some people think that when you read expressions, you can detect lies, is to detect lies. And what do you think about it?
Well, Dr. Ekman, it's very clear that that's not the purpose of facial coding because people
Hmm.
lie in different ways. I mean, honestly, in the course of evolution, if we gave away lies really readily, uh, those people would not be around to have offspring because they would have been detected and presumably killed off rather quickly. They also probably couldn't find mates because, generally speaking, we prefer to be with somebody who's going to be loyal to us, unless we're a masochist or something. So it just doesn't work. And then the other thing is that people have again personalities. So some people, the way they handle lying is they get very afraid. Like Richard Nixon was a very fearful liar.
Yeah,
But Bill Clinton was not a fearful liar. Instead, he got really angry and said, I did not have sexual relations with that
yeah.
woman. So he showed indignation instead. Dwight Eisenhower, our former president here in America, he showed contempt sometimes because he was raised to be very religious. And so when he told a lie, he didn't respect himself for telling the lie.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so different people handle lying in different ways, and there is no one template. So you can try out the different avenues, but no, it's an exaggeration to imagine it works that way. And it's a good thing because honestly, studies show that most people lie quite a bit in life. Some
Yeah.
of them are nice, gracious, so-called white lies. Other ones are to promote ourselves. So, that's just human nature. We are not very honest with ourselves, and we're not very honest with other people, always to one degree or another. So we need the camouflage. So I guess we'd have to say, thank God our faces don't give everything away quite that
Yeah.
readily.
Yeah, but if we lie to ourselves, who are not going to lie to other ones?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we live in a fun house of
without know
mirrors.
it. Yeah, we do
Yeah,
it
without knowing
without
it.
noticing. Yeah,
Yeah, now
yeah,
the Dutch are famous for being rather blunt and honest, but they're the exception.
yeah, but it depends in the way because one thing that happened to me, I thought that the Dutch were the most honest, and they say they tell you things in front and everything. And when I go to meetings, they tell me you are too honest, and I was like, too honest? You can be too honest? I said you can be honest, but too honest. And I was relaxed because I like to say what I feel, what I think I feel, at least. But then
Yes.
they tell me that I'm too honest. And it's like, okay, I never heard that before. So I was a little shocked with that. I was like, oh, you were supposed to be the honest one. It's
Yeah.
curious.
Well. What being honest usually means is, I'm going to unload on you because I'm going to say what I honestly want to say to you, as opposed to necessarily being honest about what I'm saying. Yes, there's a distinction there.
Yeah, well, for me, I was surprised when they started telling me that I was too honest.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I can tell right away you're a very warm, good person. So
Oh, thank you.
I would stand on your side in any dispute along those lines.
Oh, thank you. What do you see in me? What can you say
Well,
about me?
first, well,
It
first
was
of all,
like,
you emote a lot, and
I
so when
what?
people are you emote, you show on your face a lot of
Ah,
action, a
yeah.
lot of response. So you're a very lively person. So that's the first thing, because I've been on TV where I've actually been asked to look at psycho killers. And, it's
Wow.
really disturbing because very often they don't show very much emotion because they don't care about other people. Bernie
Oh, yeah.
Madoff, the famous, pyramid scheme guy who built people out of their savings, he was very similar. He didn't show much emotion because other people didn't matter to him that much. He was a cold fish. So the
Oh,
first thing I notice is just how much you are emoting. And the second thing I notice is how much you're smiling. And
yeah, I know
happiness as
that.
an emotion. Yeah, happiness as an emotion means I'm reaching out, I'm embracing, I'm hugging, I'm holding. It could be literally a person, it could be a concept because you're exploratory and advancing and seeing what's out there in the world. But it signifies a positive orientation. And there's studies to show that happy people or people who are happy in the moment will brainstorm more successfully to better outcomes. So they're quicker at
Oh,
it and they have better ideas through their brainstorming. So really in business, we sometimes think happiness isn't all that important. We want to satisfy customer, but in terms of our workforce, we don't think happiness is that important. It's just the customer who needs to be happy. No, you actually want a happy workforce. That is
yes, true.
beneficial to good outcomes and collaboration within the office.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I was going to tell you that the people read my face always. They know when I don't like something. I'm smiling, but when I don't like something, they can see it easy.
Yeah,
Sometimes
well,
I don't say it, but they can see it.
that famous saying, that so and so's an open book or a face like an open book.
Yeah.
Some people are like trilogies. It's more than one book.
Yeah, true. That happened to me. But I don't know how to change it. That's the way I am.
No, no,
And I like
you
it.
will be uncomfortable and less effective if you're less authentic. I mean,
Yeah,
authenticity.
I don't
Yeah,
know how to do it. So
yeah.
I'm
Don't
like
worry
this.
about
And
it.
no, it's something that there are other things that I want to change about me that I don't like, but this I like. It's the way I
Yeah,
am. It's easy.
yeah,
Make it
yeah,
easy. And
yeah.
I was going to tell you yes about business because some people think that when you are in business, you need to be serious. You need to. It's like some people, not everyone, but they think you need to have like two personas, like your persona and your business personality, and you need to be serious. And I need to have fun when I'm working. And I always say that no, you need to be yourself. And some people don't see it that way. Mainly men tell me that I cannot be that fun and having fun at work. How do you see that?
Well, there's a wonderful saying from Milan Kundera, the Czech writer, who said, "Don't trust anyone without a sense of humor. I never met a KGB agent who had one." Putin, for instance, not to get overly political, and I can say plenty about leaders in the U.S., but Putin is not a man with a sense of humor, and
No.
that's pretty obvious. And that has real implications for how you do your job and how you interact with people and so forth. I mean, I'll admit if I'm closing an important business deal and I'm working with a banker, I probably don't want the banker making a lot of jokes in the moment
Yeah, of course.
because I want them to pay attention to the details. But in general, I also want to know that I trust this person and like this person. And if they remind me of Putin, it's probably not someone I want to bank with because I'm going to fear that I'm going to get poisoned or killed in some fashion.
Yeah, that's yeah. Of course, there are some moments that you need to be serious. You cannot be having fun all
Yeah.
the time. But I see this that sometimes people tell you that you need to be serious at work, and, like to have two personalities. I cannot do it.
Yeah. Nor should you have to. Yeah.
And how do you think it can influence also in the team, what you say? Because people focus on the customer, but inside your company,
Yeah, no, one of the things you never want to do is if you have a good employee is lose that person. Because
yeah.
it's they walk out the door with a lot of knowledge that they've created. They've inspired their colleagues. You have to go hire somebody and train them and all of that. You want the glue of connecting, and so successful teams will have probably some different personalities, and maybe those personalities, maybe someone is more fastidious and they're in charge of the timeline, and someone's more the brainstormer, and maybe that's your happy camper, and there's someone who's kind of naturally the doubter who shows disgust or contempt or sadness, and maybe they're the ones who you use to kind of poke holes in your ideas and make sure they're sound. And that's all fine. So there are different personalities. But if you can respect each personality in turn and what it brings to the table, I mean, one of the really important things here is that there are no necessarily negative emotions. Anger can mean, yes, that you're a hothead, but it can also mean you're trying to make progress. You're trying to break through barriers. You're trying to get somewhere. Sadness can be an indication that not just that you're down and low energy, it can also be that you're really attuned to other people. You're very empathetic, that you feel other people's disappointment, that you want to connect with people. So every emotion has an upside and a downside to
Yeah,
it.
true.
And you're taking money off the table to not allow for each of these emotions. And to build a good team, yeah, you have to draw on their personal energy and capital, their emotional capital, and allow for that. So that's, a good team is not just marching through an agenda; it's also the
Yes,
interactive skills.
yes. The soft skills are important.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to spend a lot of time with these people, probably more time than you spend with your children or spouse. I mean, you've
Yes.
got an 8-hour workday, you might have a 10-hour workday. These things matter.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And now, changing from business, can you tell us some expressions from some famous people that we can read, for
Sure.
example?
Well, I think this person's famous enough. Well, actually, let's start with the Beatles, because I keep
Okay.
being amazed by just I mean, the Beatles are still the best-selling musical group,
Yes.
you know,
I don't see
40
you.
years or
Can
whatever.
you, sorry, Dan, can you move a little because now if you move now I can see you. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I got too
It's
excited
okay.
about talking and started leaning into the camera. So
It's
I
okay.
can tell you that when I started looking at the Beatles, I was surprised most of all by George Harrison, because I always thought of him as the quiet Beatle, the one who sang about peace and love and wanted to go to India. And actually, maybe in part because he was the third wheel after John and Paul, he actually has a lot of anger in him.
Oh,
And
really?
so if you go back and you look at photographs of the Beatles, I suggest that you notice how his eyes are narrowed often. It's kind of like a snake eyes expression, or his lips are pressed together. Those are really common things for George Harrison. So I think anytime you go
Oh,
back to look at a Beatles photograph, you might want to do that. I'll stay with singers for a little bit.
okay.
Kanye West, to go very
Yes.
contemporary. I think he's now going through a divorce. I think Kim Kardashian is divorcing him, and
Oh, yes.
he's a pretty crazy guy in a lot of different ways. I mean, he actually said that slavery was voluntary. I don't think any history book
Really?
I've seen has suggested that. Yeah. I know he's bipolar. I don't know if the two
Maybe
things are linked in
that's
any
it.
way. But when I looked at his face, what really surprised me is how much he shows disgust. And with disgust, what happens very often is the nose wrinkles, like bad taste, bad smell, or the upper lip flares, like you're trying to get away from
I,
something that's
mhm.
kind of poisonous to you. Another singer would be Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra might come across like, I did it my way. I'm very comfortable, very confident in life. But actually, Frank Sinatra shows a lot of fear. And the most reliable sign of fear is when the mouth pulls wide and kind of an egads sort of expression, that something's
Oh,
wrong. So he was a very wary person, actually, in a lot of ways. His career had ups and downs. When he told his mom he wanted to be a singer, she wanted him to be an aviation engineer, I believe it was. She actually threw a shoe at him when he said he
yeah.
wanted to be a singer instead. So he was always on guard in life. And so that's just a few indications, but yes.
Well, I'm going to check the photos later when we finish. I will check it because I'm really curious about it. And when the people with these famous people, for example, when they use Botox, you can still read their facial expressions.
Well, yes, because you're looking at 43, actually 44, two sets of muscles either side of the face. And so, a Botox injection is going to really be trying to neutralize what's called the corrugator muscle, which is over the eyebrow, sometimes called the frowning muscle, where the eyebrows will knit together. So that's really the most common place that the injection takes place. But that's just one of, 44 muscles.
Yeah, well.
And so, yes, it takes away a little bit of information, but it's not going to take away all the information, not even close.
Yeah, because I was thinking maybe with the surgeries and things.
Well, that's a more serious thing. For instance, Joan Rivers or Michael Jackson. I mean, they both had so much surgery. Man, I remember watching Joan Rivers on the Celebrity Apprentice, hosted by Donald Trump, which we can probably talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
But she would be like really mad, seemingly, and her words would be really angry, and there'd be no anger on her face because there has been so much surgery.
Yeah,
it's like yeah, it's all been pressed and worked over, and Michael Jackson was very much the same way. I mean, if you looked at photographs of him as a boy versus an adult, I mean, he didn't look like he was the same gender or the same race, and he didn't have the same emotions possible on his face. So those are instances where you have very little emoting. And then I just mentioned Donald Trump, who of course has all sorts of emoting. And most people will associate Donald Trump with anger, and he does show a lot of anger. But what's actually unique about Donald Trump is how much sadness and disgust he shows, because he has such a big ego that I think he's eternally sad that people don't recognize his genius or what he believes is his genius. Okay. And he doesn't have a lot of friends because his ego is his closest friend. And so he's often a very sad and isolated person. And he's a germaphobe, and he does show a lot of disgust on his face. He's famous for not wanting to shake, Angela Merkel's hand, for instance, when they first met, things like that. So there's all sorts of evidence on the face, but yes, Botox takes away a little bit of it, but not that much.
So you can still see the expressions. Yeah, because I was just curious about it. And there is something that you have learned about people when you start reading the feelings that all of us share. In general, most of the people share something that you can read. I don't know if I can explain that in a good way. I don't know if you understand.
Are you asking for what things I've kind of picked up in life by spending all these years doing facial coding?
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. Well, that's fine. To me, probably the most fascinating one is how similar surprise and fear are. Because there's only one expression, the one I mentioned regarding Frank Sinatra, where the mouth pulls wide in fear. That's the only instance where it is just fear and not also surprise being shown. And think back to a cliche we often use in business where you say to your vendor or to your colleague or your boss says to you, no surprises. They don't want to be surprised, because when you're surprised by something, it means something has changed. And when something has changed, you have to exert energy to deal with it. It might be an opportunity or it might be a problem. But either way, you now have to summon your energies to cope with it. And quite honestly, human beings prefer to be like house cats. If we had our way, we would probably sleep and slumber through most of the day. And so anytime someone says no surprises or that was a surprise, I think about the fact that fear and surprise overlap so much. Our natural, disposition as human beings is to be on guard. We're all little Frank Sinatras in a way, and we're always looking out for danger, which makes sense because we have more negative emotions than positive emotions. Really, only happiness is a positive emotion. Surprise is kind of a neutral emotion. Good surprises, bad surprises.
Yeah, it can be.
And then the other emotions are. Yeah, and then all the other emotions are negative emotions, because it goes back to Charles Darwin. It goes back to survival. It goes back to us being on guard to take care of ourselves. And so emotions are in many ways kind of radar screens or tripwires to keep us alive and alert to what's going on around us.
It's true. I never think about it, that most of the emotions are negative. but it's true.
Yes, or quote unquote negative. I mean, again, anger can
Yeah,
have
well,
a
yeah.
positive purpose, but conventionally speaking, yes, I think most people would think of anger as a negative emotion, especially if they've ever
Yes,
been hit by somebody.
yes. Yes, true. Wow, it's so interesting. I love to learn more and more about it. I could be here for 20 hours. Yeah, but we need to finish. But can you give
Sure.
us some tips of advice for the people who want to know more about facial coding and some intuitive reactions? They can read your books to start. And then the next step, what could be?
Well, yeah, I mean, the famous faces decoded, I actually took kind of the secret sauce of facial coding and I offered it up, but I also tried to make it fun through celebrities. So I think you could take the book, you could take the secret sauce, and then you could just go on Google or go to YouTube or any place else and just start watching videos, of interactions or people. I also think you can apply it to TV shows and movies, like what's going on. One of my favorite things is to watch politicians,
Yeah.
when they're probably not telling the truth and to see what emotions they show. Because as I said, every kind of person who's not being honest will reveal their discomfort in different kinds of ways. So I can sometimes just enjoy doing that. Or frankly, I like watching, like if it's on CNN, I like watching the person who's doing the interview because sometimes you can tell when they don't like the guest or the guest
Oh,
is
really?
going on for too long.
I never think
And so
about
then
it.
you can kind of, yeah, and then you can see their reactions to the guest. And they may not say it, but they show it. So I think there's all sorts of fun ways, interesting ways, and actually profitable ways that you can hone your instincts by going to the video or going to the photographs.
Oh, that's good. I will check all the videos that I did, just in case. To see how I did it. Because I think I like all of them, but I don't know if there is some part that I didn't like. And maybe I show it. So it's a good advice. So thank you very much. There is something else that you would like to add? Something important that I didn't ask you?
Well, I might mention to viewers that if they're interested, I'm going to be launching Faces and Places tours, starting in America, but maybe eventually into Europe as well. And they're going to be very focused on going to a certain city or region and looking at the personalities, the biographies of people
Wow.
who came from that area or became famous in that area. So I'm starting the first one in Memphis because it's a famous music site. It's where Elvis Presley was from. So I'm starting with Memphis in October of this year, but I'm doing them very different. I don't want the large cattle calls. So these are only
Mhm.
like 8 or 10 people who will be on the group, and I will have private sessions with each person, including facially coding them and telling them
Wow.
what I figured out about their personalities. So it's kind of a combination of travel and kind of emotional intelligence and facial coding all kind of
That's
mashed
really
up
interesting.
together.
I
Yeah,
want to
so
know that too.
you know,
I'm interested
yeah, well,
if you come to
maybe we'll
Europe.
get a chance. Maybe we'll get a chance to meet in Memphis next October. Who knows?
Yeah, let's see how it goes with the traveling thing.
Yeah,
But
well, this is all based on and hoping that, with COVID-19, we will finally slay the dragon and get the vaccines in the arm and moved on. And,
yes,
right now that's
let's
still getting worked through. But hopefully we're going to see the backside of that at some point here.
yeah, let's hope it's soon. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dan. I really enjoyed the talk. The time flies,
Yes, thank
but
you.
we need to finish. So thank you very much for
Okay,
joining
thank you
us
so much.
and have a good day.
Yep, yep. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.